Wildcats, to another edition of a volleyball breakdown episode. I am your host, AC, and I'm joined by one of the best Wildcat middle blockers of all time, Hannah DeYoung.
Thanks, AC. It's good to be here.
Yes, and we're so happy to have you. Wildcats, first place Wildcats, I might say, coming off a split against a tough opponent in Northern Arizona on the road in Flagstaff. We're going to bring you all the information and analysis that you could possibly imagine here on this episode. But first, we want to remind you to subscribe to Weber State Weekly. We are on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, and we're on Stitcher. Anywhere you could possibly want to find a podcast, you can find us there. I also want to remind you to follow us on Twitter at Weber State Weekly, Instagram at Weber State Weekly. You can also hit us up on Facebook, our Weber State Weekly page. We're also active on a Weber State fans page on Facebook as well. You can also email us. Is weberstateweekly@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like us to talk about, any questions for myself, for Hannah, or anyone else. You can hit us up through email, and we will be happy to get back to you. All right, Hannah. Wildcats split against the Lumberjacks. Northern Arizona was picked second in the Big Sky preseason polls. It was the Lumberjacks and the Wildcats who were both tied for second place, a very formidable opponent down in Flagstaff. And Weber State heads down there, and they end up losing the first match 3-1. So, Hannah, can I get your thoughts on that first match against Northern Arizona?
Yeah, for sure. I think, hats off first to Northern Arizona. I think they came out firing, to be quite honest. And they looked really good, really solid. One thing that Northern Arizona is really good at is serving tough. That's something that they do really well. The good news for us is that we also have tough servers. And so we're seeing that every day in practice, and so that's who we get to play against every day. And so I think we were well prepared for their tough serves this year. Unfortunately, I feel like the Weber State team on Sunday just looked like a team that we haven't seen yet all season. And so hats off to NAU for, I think, executing their game plan. That first day, they played really well. So I think hats off to them.
They did play really well, right? And I think it almost felt a little bit demoralizing for the Wildcats. And towards the end of that first match, we saw some body language that I don't think that we'd seen from this Weber State team yet this season. They looked a little bit deflated at the end of that first match. It was just kind of a tough match, right? Weber State wasn't hitting particularly well. The team as a whole hit 140 in that first match. But also the thing that really jumped out to me was the errors. So Northern Arizona only had 8 blocks on the match, but Weber State had 28 errors, right? And so that's more than a set's worth of errors right there. And to me, that was kind of what killed this Wildcat team. But then there was another aspect, another wrinkle in this match that I think kind of threw the team off a little bit out of their rhythm. And that's when Caroline Broadhead went down with an injury, right? It looked like I don't know, I haven't heard official word, but it looked like she might have sprained her ankle and she was kind of hobbling off the court there. She had to get some help from her teammates and the trainer. And so I think that kind of threw a wrinkle into things as well. It might have impacted the game plan. What do you think?
Yeah, it is hard to see someone like Caroline go down with an injury like that, especially where she has been so impactful for us this season. She is hitting really well offensively. She's blocking really well. And so for sure to lose her, that's tough. And hopefully she'll recover quickly and will be back soon for us with that. But the good news is, a loss is never a bad loss if you learn from it. And I think that's what the Wildcats did for sure. Right. Maybe we just had an off night on that Sunday game. But I think we were able to learn from the way we played and apply the things that we learned into Monday's match, which to me watching, they looked like a completely different team on Monday. And so we always say a loss is never a bad loss as long as you learn. And so the good news is I think we learned from that loss, and I think we're a better team because of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's honestly, it might be a good thing. And in the grand scheme of things as well, you have to look at it and say, well, Weber State's already played Northern Colorado on the road, played Sacramento State, who the Wildcats traditionally kind of struggle against, and you've played Northern Arizona, three of the top tier programs in the Big Sky Conference, 6 matches, and Weber State's 5-1. I mean, so really, I don't think you can complain too much, even with losing that first match against Northern Arizona.
No, for sure. I think to go 5-1 is huge, and I think it's something that we should be super happy about, and something that we can find a lot of pride in the fact that we were able to go 5-1 with some of the best teams in our league. So
For sure. So I want to circle back to that first match against Northern Arizona real quick. Something very positive I thought that came out of that match was we saw the return of the right side Emma Mangum, right? She had been out for a couple weeks with a minor injury. And not only did she return, in my opinion, in that first match, she had her best match as a Wildcat. She ended up with 11 kills on the night, second on the team. She was hitting 280 from the right side there. And so I thought that was a big addition, getting Emma back. I mean, just having her back on the floor was big, but the way she played also, I thought was a really big bright spot for the Wildcats, despite losing the match. So it's kind of a little funky. You end up losing Caroline to an injury, but you end up getting Emma Mangum back. So it was a little bit of a different match. Something I think that we have to consider in the context of the entire season. But let's move on now to the more exciting part of this series, right? To last night when the Wildcats ended up beating Northern Arizona 3-1. And honestly, that it was super exciting because there were a lot of comebacks, right? In the third set, Weber State was trailing for a lot of it and ended up coming back and winning it by 5 points. Fourth set also was just, I mean, we ended up seeing some free volleyball in that one, some overtime. So it was pretty exciting. What do you think about that second match in Flagstaff?
yeah, for sure. I think that that second match just showed how gritty this team is. Like you mentioned, Northern Arizona had opportunities to win in that third set, in that fourth set, but Weber State didn't back down at all. I think we just stayed super focused, mentally, physically, emotionally, and because of that, we were able to make NAU work for their points. Right? You mentioned the first day that we did have a lot of errors, and I think one of the biggest differences is on that Monday night that we were making NAU earn their points. We weren't just giving it to them. And so I think it shows, again, I talked about last time the character of this team. I think this is a team of fighters. It's a team that is just going to take it one ball at a time. No matter the score, they're going to fight. They're going to be gritty, and they're going to keep going until they're successful. And I think that's a huge testament to who we are as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I thought was really interesting about this match is that even though Weber State kind of they won the first set, and so they kind of put Northern Arizona on their back foot a little bit. Northern Arizona wins the second set, and then in the third and fourth set, I mean, although Weber State won, so the match only goes to 4 sets, but it was back and forth. It was back and forth quite a bit. Northern Arizona dominated the early part of the third set. Weber State ended up making a big charge in the second half of the third set. And then in the fourth set, though, that's where I thought it was really interesting because it ended up being a deuce set. And Weber State was on the back end of that deuce set almost the entire time, right? They ended up winning it 30-28. But I'll tell you what, I mean, Northern Arizona had like, I don't know exactly how many, but it felt like they had probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 set points in there. And Weber State just fought back. They kept fighting, and I think that that's kind of it shows the character of this team. It shows kind of what we saw against Northern Colorado a little bit. Maybe not quite to that extent because Northern Colorado went the full 5 sets, but I mean, it was a super exciting match, and we saw this team put in a bunch of different positions. We saw them come out and dominate the first set, and then they had to fight back a couple times in the third and fourth set after losing the second set as well. And so it was a little bit of a different match, but overall, in my opinion, I want to get your opinion on this, but in my opinion, it's a huge victory for the Wildcats getting a split on the road, especially in the context where you swept Northern Colorado on the road, you swept Sacramento State. And so just being able to split against Northern Arizona, to me, is a huge success.
Yeah, I agree. I think NAU is a great team. They have a lot of really great players. They're really well coached. Flagstaff itself is a hard place to play. And I feel like we kind of got the rough draw having to face UNC, both games at their place, NAU, both games at their place. And so I think Weber State can be happy with a split in Flagstaff for sure.
So a couple things I want to ask you about playing it at NAU. So one thing is that it seemed like the ceiling was coming into play on like every other point. Like it feels like their gym is like 6 feet tall. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm the guy, the broadcaster. I mean, bless his heart. It was like every other play, he was like, "Oh, the ball's bouncing off the beam. It's ricocheting off the beams." Like, how low is that gym there?
Yeah, it is low. And I think if I remember correctly, they have these kind of like low hanging lights. It's kind of an old fashioned gym with the lights. It's like one of those gyms where you walk in and you just hear that constant buzzing sound, you know? And so I think not only is the ceiling low, but I think like the lighting is kind of weird. And of course, NAU's at elevation, so the ball is going to move a little bit differently than we're used to. One of the nice things about the Swenson, of course, is those super high ceilings that we get to play with. And so, yeah, I think maybe the gym was a little bit of an adjustment for them for sure.
So and you touched on the other thing that I was going to bring up is the elevation. And I think I'm just going off the top of my head here. I think that Flagstaff is the highest altitude city in the Big Sky Conference. I think Ogden is right around 4,400, 4,500, somewhere in there. And I think Flagstaff is at like 6,600 or something, like
Yeah, yeah.
6,600 feet. And so I think it's the highest elevation city in the Big Sky. And you touched on it a little bit. The ball floats a little bit different. So how much of an impact do you think that that has over a two match span like we saw this last weekend?
hmm Yeah, I think, right, anytime you're traveling to a higher elevation or down to sea level, the ball is going to float a little bit differently. One of the nice things, though, at least, is that we do get to go in before the match and get some practice time and kind of get used to the surroundings and the way the ball is floating. And so I think that we were able to at least adjust a little bit before the actual match. Um, Kind of see the way the ball's going to flow off of a serve or different things like that. But um, for sure, it is a different feel to play at elevation than it is to play in Ogden.
Definitely. I mean, I'm a big volleyball fan. I've played a little bit, not as much as you, but I mean the elevation definitely plays a huge factor into it. And so it's interesting to see how Weber State, because Weber State oftentimes is the benefactor of that when teams are coming into Ogden from lower places. But now Weber State was on the opposite end of it, where they were moving up in elevation to Flagstaff. So now, Hannah, I want to move on to kind of the nitty gritty of our podcast here. And I want to go to turnovers, takeaways, and MVPs. And so we're going to be doing it for the whole series, two match series. Let's go to your turnover first. What's one bad thing that you think you saw from the Wildcats this weekend?
I think for me, my turnover is going to be just inconsistencies. And we talk a lot about ebbs and flows, right? Super high, super low. And I feel like Weber State, we had some super high highs and then some super low lows. And so you want to kind of live just in that like medium highs and lows rather than those drastic highs and lows. And so I think just for me, the turnover is going to be the inconsistencies we saw in our serving, in our passing, offensively, with our blocking. That's probably going to be my turnover is just the difference between super high highs, super low lows. I'd like to see it be a little more just kind of average, managing those highs and lows. I think when you can do that, you're stopping other teams' runs, which is going to be good for you, of course. And so I think that's one thing that we could have done better this weekend.
Definitely. I mean, volleyball is a game of runs, right? And when Weber State is low and they're on the wrong end of those runs, we've seen it come back to bite them a few times this season now. For me, my turnover is going to be the fact that Weber State ended up losing Caroline Broadhead, and we don't know how long she's going to be out. And that is concerning to me. And I say that because she's playing behind Sam Sheese, right? In the rotation, she's playing right behind her. And I think she's been solid. I think she's been so good. in pretty much every aspect of the game for middle blocker, right? She's been good defensively. I think that she's probably one of the top 2 or 3 best servers on the team. She's towards the top of the conference in aces per set. And so I think losing her is, I mean, that's a big challenge. She's brought a lot of talent to the team so far this season. She's been reading the game really well, I think, and so losing her and having your depth tested, uh, to me, that's the turnover, and that's not anything that the Wildcats can help, unfortunately. But in my opinion, that's probably the single worst thing to come out of this weekend series against Northern Arizona was losing Caroline Broadhead. So now let's move on to takeaways. One good thing that you saw from the Wildcats this weekend.
Yeah, I think my takeaway has got to be that serving and passing wins games. I think it's all about who can serve the toughest and who can uh, pass the best. That's really the tale of who's going to be the most successful. And I think, right, we saw it on Monday. NAU, like I mentioned, had all these opportunities to win and just kind of squandered it by serving into the net. We saw them have all these serving errors, plus 20 points, right? When it's kind of critical to manage your serves and get it in the court. Whereas on the flip side, when you're looking at Weber State, the game's on the line and Danny Nay's serving nails. Like she's making NAU work for their points. And I think that is something, again, that I think is just so awesome about this team is that if we can make other teams earn their points instead of just giving up errors, I think that's something, part of the reason why Weber State is so hard to beat is because of our ability to make other teams work. And it's not easy to do that. And so for sure, my takeaway is going to be serving and passing wins games. I think you saw it on Monday. We served tough, we passed well, and obviously we were successful because of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people will agree that at the end of the day, volleyball is about serving and serve receive, right? And whoever wins that is usually, I mean, if they don't win the match, they're going to have quite the advantage in the match, right? So at the end of the day, volleyball is about serving and serve receive. For me, I'm gonna go a little bit different. I'm gonna say that my takeaway is the fact that I thought that Weber State's offense was a lot more balanced. I thought it was a lot more spread out, and I love to see it. Right, you had Emma Manga back on the right side, but then also I thought that the back row attack, specifically from Rylan, was looking so good. There were a couple times, especially in that second match, where she came flying out of the back row, and she's got that broad jump that carries her right up towards the net. And I'm telling you, it looked like she jumped like she had like a 50-inch vertical, and she was just destroying the ball, and it was so much fun to watch. Right, when Ashlyn can set it to the right side, the middle, the left, or that big pipe set, it's just I don't know how you stop this team when you've got a balanced attack like that. And seeing that balance when I think that the team at times this season has been a little bit heavy to the left side, but I think that especially in that second match, we saw a lot more balance from this team. And so I think, I mean, again, I just, when Ashland's spreading the ball out like that, I don't know who in the big sky is going to stop this team. So for me, my takeaway is a balanced attack. All right, let's go on to MVP. It's a tough one this week, but I want to hear from you, Hannah. Who you got? MVP.
All right. I think I'm going to give my MVP after the Monday night game has got to be Danny Nay. You know, she goes out there and she's hitting 432, which, right, we ask pin hitters to hit around that 200 hitting percentage mark. So for Danny to go out there and hit 432 is big time.
So for her to double that, that's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. She's doing almost, yeah, exactly double of what they're asking her to do. And so I think that's awesome. I think not only was she aggressive offensively, but her serving. And I think that was so key in that fourth set win, especially. Danny went back there, the game's on the line, and up. And I think that's a big deal too. She led the team with 2 aces. And then you've got to look at her defensively. She had 22 digs as well. And so I feel like Danny was just a well-rounded force for them on Monday night. She was hitting, she's serving tough, she's playing defense. And so that's why I'm going to give my MVP to Danny, which fun fact, Monday night she was doing it with one eye. On Sunday, I guess she took an elbow to the eye and had this gnarly black eye on Monday. So I guess it was the key to her success or something, a black eye.
Something. Well, I'll tell you what, she snapped out of it because she was looking fantastic on
I
Monday,
know, yeah,
right?
she
I'm
looked
gonna have to
awesome.
come up with a nickname. I have to think of something. One eye, something based off of one eye there. So I'll have to think about that. But you know what? I'm with you. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here. My MVP is Danny Nay. I don't know how you can go anywhere else, especially after Monday. I think she was in a little bit of a weird streak for her, right? We saw her just come in and dominate the Big Sky last season, and then this season, there were a couple matches strung together, which was kind of the worrying thing, where she wasn't looking quite like herself. She wasn't looking like what we saw from her last year. And then on Monday, we see her go 17 kills, one error, 22 digs, get the double double. And so, honestly, I don't know how you can go anywhere else other than Danny Nay. And if she snapped out of things, if that black eye just woke her up or whatever, and now she's just killing it, I'm all for it. I mean, we're gonna have to find a way to get her a black eye a little bit more often, huh? Because I'll tell you what, she played lights out on Monday. Danny Nay, absolutely 100% my MVP for this one. So let's take a look ahead. This next weekend, we've got Weber State heading up to Pocatello to play Idaho State. And Hannah, you know a lot about this Idaho State team. You were just on the team in 2019 season. Can you give us a little bit of a scouting report from the Bengals?
Yeah, I think Idaho State is always a tough team for us to play. I think we kind of have this rivalry going on between Idaho State, between us, and they always seem to play really well against us. Doesn't matter if we're in Pocatello or we're in Ogden. That Idaho State team is kind of out for blood against us when they are playing us. And so for sure, I think we've got to expect that they're going to come after us a little bit. They aren't just going to go away. I think because of that rivalry between the two teams, Idaho State has a really nice middle blocker in Taylor Meeks. She's returning for them, and she's done some really nice things for them in the past. I believe they have Reagan Steiner is still up there, and she's a nice hitter for them. And so I think they're for sure a team that isn't to be overlooked. So I would expect to see them come out and battle with us a little bit.
That's right. Idaho State having a little bit of a tough season so far. Weber State coming off probably their toughest series of the season, where they actually split one. So Wildcats remain atop the Big Sky at 11-1. They've got Montana State right on their heels at 10-2. And guess who we've got after Idaho State, Hannah? We got those Bobcats.
Montana State.
Yeah, got Montana State. And so hopefully the ladies don't look ahead too far and they're able to focus and get the job done up in Pocatello. So that's going to do it for us for this week. Before we leave, we want to remind you, please subscribe to us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. You can find us anywhere that you listen to your podcast. Please follow us on social media, on Twitter at Weber State Weekly. We're active on Twitter on game days, or on Instagram at Weber State Weekly as well. You can hit us up through our email, weberstateweekly@gmail.com. We want to thank our sponsor, Wildcat Rack, for helping Wildcat Nation get all their officially licensed Weber State gear. Get your best purple and white stuff through wildcatrack.com. We thank our sponsors, Wildcat Rack. All right, Hannah, we're going to end it how we always do. And we'll do it by saying Weber State, Weber State.
Great, great, great.
That's right. Go Wildcats.